Welcome back to another episode of Red Jello Reviews. In this episode, it's too dark to really see shit, and you can barely see that my hair is in fact red. I actually look like I have brown hair with these lighting conditions because my light broke and I have yet to buy a new light bulb to fix it. And at this time of the year, it's dark at like fucking 5 o'clock. Why? Because winter sucks ass, that's why. But in this video, let's just get right into the point. We're going to be making a tier list about The Sims 3 again. This time it's going to be about the different life states in The Sims 3. But before I get into that, I want to give a special thanks and a shout out to r/Sims3 over on Reddit because for the longest time I thought I was the only guy playing this game. But after finding this Reddit community, I never really used Reddit until recently. I realized how many people still love the fuck out of this game. There are not that many people on there, but it's really cool to communicate with other Sims 3 players. So for that, that's probably the only reason I'm even taking the time to make this video. I mean, honestly, like I was thinking about doing this for a while, like after I did the expansion tier list, and I still have like four other legit liquor reviews to upload. So I'm behind schedule. I get it, but I really wanted to make this one today. So we'll get right into this. Okay, so right off the bat, this is going to be more of like comparing the life states to each other because I don't really think any of the life states are so bad that like you can't play as them or anything. Like they all kind of have their advantages and disadvantages and stuff. So it's not like, oh, like this is a shitty make. Like they should have never created this life state, so it's a D or something like that. It's more of comparing them to each other. So for a baseline, we're going to put human at C because obviously there's no need to even go into the details of a human sim. It's a sim. Like, unless you literally have never played this game before, in which case, why are you watching this video, honestly? There's nothing to talk about. It's a human sim. It does what a sim can do. So it's a C. I think The Sims is a great game as a whole. So I'm not saying, oh, Sims are a C tier because it's shitty and this life state is better than it. No, I'm just saying that we have to compare it as human being normal as the baseline. I'd say C is like the average. So humans is just going to be at C. So going in order from when they were made, we'll start off with Ghosts, the other life state that came in the base game other than humans, obviously. Ghosts are dead Sims, and what's cool about them is they come in many different forms. So if you have every expansion pack, you have 21 fun and exciting ways to die, if I counted correctly. With the base game, you get old age, electrocution, starvation, fire, and drowning. But what's really cool about them is they all have these different colors and effects to them. So, like for example, a sim that died from drowning will be blue and drip water. Sim that died from a fire will be orange with a smoky, fiery effect. And they look really cool, and they get pretty fun and cool to play with when you have kids with them, because then you have ghost babies and stuff, and they're pretty cool. Like, but there really isn't much abilities that they have when you're looking at other life states and things that they can do. A ghost is just kind of floating around in limbo with not much to do. Whether you created it from create a sim or you had a sim die and you made it so they're still playable, you can always return them to the nether realm since they are technically dead. And for that reason, they can't die from anything other than ghosts that you keep around to age will eventually die from old age. Um, so they have that going for them. They're technically immortal and they're cool. They have a nice color to them. They can go through walls. Like, the biggest convenience factor about it too is you have the male and female bathrooms at some public lots, and when you click the needs to pee movelet, it'll just randomly choose a toilet on the lot, and sometimes the sim won't be able to actually get into the toilet, and you don't realize because you're playing as another sim and they pee themselves or something. They'll just go through the wall and use whatever bathroom they want. So like it has those advantages. They can kind of cut through stuff, get to where they need to go really easily. But that also is worth mentioning. The big downside about Ghosts, which I cannot stand, this really hurts them as a life state, is they are so fucking slow. Like they are miserably slow. Like right now in my game, I have a ghost, and she's a lifeguard, and it just takes her forever to do anything. Like there'll be a sim drowning, and be like, "Okay, you gotta run and save their lives." And she's just like floating slowly. Oh, I'm coming. Don't worry, I'm getting there. They are so slow. They don't run, so they just slowly float everywhere they go, with the exception of stairs, because they didn't feel like coding that in. They'll just decide to use their feet then for some fucking reason. The only other downside to Ghost that I can really say is they have this sound effect that comes with them, this ghostly, ghastly noise, which is kind of cool at first, but after a while it starts to get really annoying hearing that constantly when you have a ghost in your house, and it just feels like you need to get that ghost the fuck out of there. It just makes your house feel haunted, which is good because I guess that's what it aims to do since they're a ghost, but it's like it gets a little annoying. But I don't really think there's too much to talk about when it comes to ghosts. They're ghosts. They have their cool colors and different ways that you get them from how the sim died. And they're fun, but they can't really do anything too special. They're just cool to look at for the most part, and it adds a really nice scenery when they're coming out from the graves and stuff like that. Um, Worth mentioning that if you have a playable ghost, like a ghost that's your sim, you can't haunt anything like the non-playable ones do. Like when they go into objects and stuff, they'll only do that if you actually let them go to the nether realm. And when they're not playable, they'll floating to objects and stuff. I kind of really wish that you could do that as a playable ghost to like scare the shit out of Sims or something. Like just float into like a chair and make it float and stuff. You can't really scare people. You make other Sims like freak out every time you step into a room. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really think there's anything to write home about when it comes to other life states in this game. They're just pretty cool, I guess. So I'm gonna put them at the B tier. I don't really think they deserve much more praise than that. I think B is just a pretty comfortable spot for it. They're cool, they have their fun moments, but they're slow as shit, and there really isn't too much to them at the end of the day, other than the many variations. So the next life state, which comes with World Adventures, the first expansion pack to Sims 3, is the Mummy. Now the Mummy's pretty cool because it has some advantages. No bladder need, no energy need. Doesn't need a piss, doesn't need a shit, doesn't need to sleep. Now imagine how much more you can get done when you don't need to do those three things. I mean, we'd probably have a cure for cancer right now if people didn't need to sleep. Not to mention the 5 minute breaks you got to take the dookie every now and then. But on top of that, you get a 5 times lifetime multiplier, which means your sim who's a mommy will live a very long time. So that's always pretty nice. They're going to be around for a while. They will win any fight. If you get into a brawl, you get in the ring, you're gonna win every time, guaranteed. Supposedly, I've tested it out. They've never lost, but according to Sims Wikia, they will always win a fight no matter what. I'm assuming if two mummies go against each other, then the other stuff that goes into that comes into play. But they'll always win when they get in the ring. Um, I guess that's really all there is to it, though, as far as advantages go. That's pretty much what you get: a long life, you win every fight, and you don't need to sleep or go to the bathroom. So that's pretty cool. But the disadvantages are going to kind of nullify this, and here's why. Number one, for whatever reason, they still have a hygiene need. Now, I don't understand why, considering they are a mummy who, a mummy is someone who's been mummified. They're dead. Their body's been wrapped up to be preserved. They're dead. Why would they need to clean themselves anyway? It doesn't make any sense. But because they still have to tend to that hygiene need, they actually get soaked because they're wrapped in all that cloth or whatever, and it actually leaves puddles around the house, which is a pain in the ass. You get a negative soak mood. You still have to take care of the hygiene needs, so you have to deal with that. So that sucks. But I guess the other thing is that they're a pain in the ass to get. So I've never actually tried to do it legitimately. For the purpose of this video, I cheated to get one. All you have to do is go to buy mode, testing cheats enabled true, buy debug on, and then you go to miscellaneous, and you buy a cursed sarcophagus of the kings or whatever, and you make your sim sleep in there for full 2 rounds, like full 2 nights. You drop their energy need down all the way to make them sleep. So for the purpose of this video, I had all my other sims cryogenically frozen, so I didn't have to worry about them. And I made this one go into the sarcophagus and become a mummy. But to legitimately do it, you have to either get 4 canopic jars and put them in a sarcophagus, or you have to um, build the sarcophagus from fragment parts, which I can imagine are a royal pain in the ass to get. Imagine how much work you normally have to put into adventure stuff, but I've never actually tried to do it. Um, the other big negative, in my opinion, is that you really don't get any special abilities other than the ability to always win the fight. You can't lay mummy curses on people like the NPC ones can do to you. You can't do shit to people, really. All you can do is kick their ass. There's nothing special about it. You don't get any superpowers. You get nothing. So basically, you can win a fight. You can't lay the curse on people. The NPC ones are way more powerful. They can lay a curse on you that literally kills you. You can't do that. So big disadvantage there. But the biggest one, which is going to take away, by the way, this actually nullifies the point I made about the longer life advantage and in the no bladder and energy need, because the fucking speed of this thing is so abominable. Like, actually, if you want to get from one point to the other walking in the house with a mummy sim, GTA 6 will be fucking released by the time you actually make it to the other side of the house, because it is so fucking abominably slow. It's so slow. It's worse than the Ghost, by the way. It's worse than anything in the game. It's the lowest speed of anything. I guarantee you're going to be late for work every day. You're going to be late for everything because you cannot fucking move. On top of you, it's so slow. Like, it doesn't matter. You need to not be able to sleep or go to the bathroom because you're gonna piss yourself every time. You're never making it to the toilet. So thank God they nullified that. And a long life doesn't matter because you're spending your entire life walking to wherever you need to go anyways. You need the longer life because you're so fucking slow. It's a real disappointment. It's awful. Like, it's actually awful. I think it makes sense. So I think it's smart that they did that, but it's so bad. It's like the speed is just ridiculous. And on top of that, they're scared of fires. So I mean, that's kind of a pain in the ass, but not really. I do show that in the video here. It doesn't really matter. It makes sense as well. But yeah, I mean, to boil it down, there really is nothing special about it. You can't customize it. They're just a wrapped up body. Like, I mean, it's kind of cool, if you want to like have that in your household. It adds some fun stuff to do, kind of, but there's really nothing special about it. You don't get any special abilities. You're slow as shit. They're just not a good playable life state, really. Like, it's not bad either. Like, I don't think it's bad, but they're just better off as NPCs to fight off in the tombs, honestly. When you play as one, it's just like, dude, you're getting a migraine because you can't even make it away from a house fire because you have to walk at two micro miles a minute, if that's a real unit of measurement. You get my point. They're slow as shit. The disadvantages, honestly, in my opinion, outweigh the advantages. Like, there's so many life states in the game. At the time, this was the only one other than Ghost or Humans, but there's so many other life states in the game that get longer lives and actually have, you know, better need balances and stuff like that that don't walk at fucking half a mile an hour. So, I mean, I don't think it's bad. Like, I'm not insulting it completely, saying it was a shitty design, like a shitty idea to make. But when it boils down to it, when I'm comparing it to other life states, I was ticking around thinking C, but honestly, if I got to compare it to every other life state in the game, it's going in the D tier. And I think I've said enough on why it belongs in the D tier. They're really not that fun to play as when it comes down to it. It gets old pretty fast, and I've never legitimately done it, but I played around with it, by cheating before. I never had it in my real file, obviously, because my real file only use cheats, but they're just not that fun to play with. You can't customize anything. You're slow as shit. You don't get any special abilities. You just get to be a mummy, which is really not an enjoyable thing to be anyway. They're not very fun to play with. They're better to just have in the background. And if you could lay curses on people or do shit to people to fuck with people, then it would be really good. But they didn't incorporate that for your playable mummies, unfortunately. So I think, unfortunately, I'd hate to do this, but it belongs in the D tier when it comes down to it. So next up is the Simbot, which comes with the Sims 3 Ambitions. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a robot sim. They're pretty cool. But to start off, they are a royal pain in the ass to invent. You can buy them with lifetime happiness points, so they'll be shittier and rustier if you do that. Whereas if you invent them, they come out looking a lot cleaner from a range of silver to black color. You can choose whether you want them to be male or female. But let me just get into this real quick. They are a royal pain in the ass to invent. I have another video on this, which I can link to hit this one. It is absolutely abominable. Now I did this all legitimately. You can cheat and buy the bug and some of these objects and get around it. But if you want to legitimately build a Simbot, I would argue that is the hardest thing to do in the entire game. All 11 expansion packs. I think this is the hardest thing to do, hands down. There's still a lot of stuff I haven't done, but I think this is the hardest single thing to do because you need 10 life fruits, which are hard to get because you have to have at least level 7 gardening to plant the seeds. And you can't know what seed it is. You have to just keep trying special seeds until you get lucky. So there's that. You have to get 10 life fruit. You need some palladium and a bunch of scrap metal, which is easy as shit to get. You can find palladium, if I'm pronouncing that right, anywhere. Scrap metal you can literally just buy, so really don't need to worry about that. But you also need a level 10 inventing skill, which is not easy to build up. It takes some time. But on top of all of that, the worst thing is that you need a heart cut pink diamond, heart shaped cut pink diamond, which is just like the rarest thing in the entire game, maybe. I don't care how long you look around the map. I don't care if you have a collection helper on, even. I refuse to use one because I wanted the challenge. You are not, you can mine for it too if you have the miner. I don't care how long you spend trying to find that thing. You are not finding it. No way, no how. That shit is fucking impossible to find. Thankfully, you only need one, but they're almost impossible to find. The way that I had to do it was I had a sim who was level 10 on martial arts, and you can break space blocks, space rock blocks, and when you do that, you get a random gem. So I just did that for hours on end until eventually I got a pink diamond. But then it wasn't even over yet because I thought I'd finally succeeded, celebrating. And then I realized you have to master a gem cutting hidden skill just to cut it like a heart. So I had to cut a bunch of random ass gems until I unlocked the heart shaped cut. Pain in the ass. And you finally get that. You have to wait for it to come back in the mail. Then you can build your Simbot. And if you want to do the Monster Creator Lifetime Wish, you have to build fucking 3 of them. So good luck. Royal pain in the ass to do. But to get into the life state by itself, um, to start off, their life is long, but they're treated like elders, only have one lifespan bar. Once it fills, they could pretty much die at any point then. It's really unpredictable. Mine took a really long time to die, but the first time he still wasn't able to live long enough to get his lifetime wish. I resurrected him and he was able to do the second round. They do take some time to die, but not as long as some of these other life states. They will eventually succumb to death from old age. They don't have a hygiene need. Um, their other needs basically work like regular Sims, although they have different names. For example, waste buildup instead of bladder, or trivial entertainment instead of fun. But they interact and pretty much live like normal Sims in that regard. However, they do have to eat scrap metal instead of just regularly eating food, which is easy to get. You can pretty much find or buy that anywhere, so not really an issue there. Um, some really cool advantages about them is they are immune to electrocution. Matter of fact, they get electrocuted, they'll get their energy bar full. They're immune to fire. So make great firefighters. They will not die from fire. They will not die from electrocution. Um, Downside is don't get water on. If they get in contact with water, whether it's rain, which can be a real pain in the ass, if you have seasons because you're trying to get to one place, you have to do it, it's raining, and you forget to give him an umbrella or whatever, you will short out. Don't go in pools, don't go in showers. Then you'll have to literally sit there and repair them. Pain in the ass. So that's one big disadvantage to them. But they have jet packs on their feet when they fly around, which I think is really cool. They're pretty fun to play with. But I think the biggest fun thing about them is they can smash shit. They can go around. You can go in Sims houses, even destroy the fuck out of anything you want and turn it into scrap metal and just wreak havoc all around town. And you'll end up building up fines from the neighborhood and stuff. But man, is it fun. You just walk into a bar, walk into some dude's house and just smash his shit relentlessly. It is the funnest thing to do. Like, it is just so cool. Um, so I find them really, really fun to play with. I find them pretty useful in some ways. They're pretty cool. Like, they're enjoyable to have in the household, especially once you've been trying forever to get one too. So I think they're pretty cool. Um, they can socialize and do things like normal Sims. Obviously, they can't have children unless you go through the painstaking process of inventing a new one. Then it'll be technically deemed their child. So you can, in a way, have kids, but you can't actually have a kid of another Sim or anything. Obviously, they're robots, so it makes sense. Not really a complaint there. Um, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to in terms of the Simbot. I'd say the other thing is though is it does kind of run its course. Like it doesn't like isn't fun to play with them forever. Like eventually it's just okay. Like you end up just treating them like a normal Sim, and you know your robot craze is a little over with it. So it's not like the funnest thing in the world after a while. But they are pretty cool. I don't really have overall too many complaints to say about them anyway. Except for one other big annoyance is no matter how well they know another sim, if they walk into a room and see a Simbot, they'll cancel all their interactions, kind of like ghosts do. So that's really annoying. Like it'll like scare other sims no matter how well they know them. Other than that, there's really not much else to talk about. I think they're a pretty fun thing to play as, and yeah, they're not anything crazy, crazy good. Like I don't think it's the best thing in the world that the game has to offer. They're really fun. They have some cool things to them, but I'm gonna place them in the A tier. I don't think it's worthy of S. Like I don't think it's like the craziest best thing they've ever come up with. It's great. Like I'm happy they're in the game, but I just don't think it's worthy of the S tier. It's close. I mean, it's kind of inching. It's a high A, but I just don't think it's great enough to be considered superior to some of these other life states and how they compare to each other. But definitely worthy of the A tier for sure. I think it's a good life state overall. It's a great addition to the game. So next up we have Vampires. Vampires came with the Sims 3 Late Night, the third expansion pack to The Sims 3. They are also reintroduced in Supernatural, but originally here with Late Night. Vampires are pretty much what you would expect them to be for the most part. They're vampires. So when you play as them, you need to drink blood. You can't eat in order to fill your hunger. You have a thirst need instead. And what's really fun and cool, just to kind of crack this right open, is you get to go on the hunt for blood, and you can actually like see infrared on your screen and like find who has the best blood for the night. And then like if you drink that specific person's blood, you'll get like a better moodlet than normal, and it's really just a fun experience. You go out at night, especially if you're living in the late night neighborhood of Bridgeport. You go out to like a club or a bar and just like hunt for that blood. It's just a really fun and cool experience. You get super speed running. It's really not that much faster than like normal Sims, but it is a lot faster. It's like really cool. It's like a whoosh thing, and it's just like it's really fun and cool. You're stronger than pretty much most Sims, so like you're gonna win brawls all the time and stuff. So you pretty much get the mummy's strength without being so slow. A matter of fact, you're twice as fast, so it's a win-win in that regard, I guess. Um, Although I think mummies are stronger. I haven't really tested out all the brawls. Maybe you can test one out here. Um, but not to get too sidetracked. If you don't want to take the time to go out on the hunt for blood all the time, then you can always drink a plasma punch from your fridge to keep your thirst need and not die from thirst. Um, it's really just a fun and cool experience. Your energy need can be handled by sleeping on a coffin instead of a bed, although you can still use a bed, but you can float over a coffin, which is a really cool animation. It's very fun to watch. I think it really fits like a gothic looking sim as well. Like I think it really is a good look for your vampire sims, like just embody the whole thing. You can have a lot of fun with it. You can make really cool stories about it. It's really fun, especially in late night, because in late night you couldn't start as a vampire. Like you can now Supernatural. You can create them right in CAS. At the time, you had to find a vampire to turn you, and then you could start your quest as this vampire sim. But it was just a really fun experience. I had a lot of fun playing as a vampire when I got Late Night. It was the first expansion pack that I got, so it was just the first life state that I played with, other than Ghost or Human, obviously. And it was just really cool to me at the time, especially because I was a kid. I had so much fun with it. Like, when I finally was able to get a vampire sim, I just had a blast. Now, vampires do come with their downsides, of course. One of them being that you get burned by sunlight. I don't see this as that big of a downside because it is a weakness. It is a downside, but it also makes so much sense. Like, it would be stupid if that wasn't the case. Like, it makes the vampire thing make sense. The sun burns you because you're a vampire. I think that's fucking awesome that they took the time to put that in there. I'd be insulted if they didn't. You can buy a lifetime reward that makes you immune to the sun, but it's really cringy because it's like Twilight. You sparkle. I just wish that it just didn't do any effect at all. That would be a little more redeeming. But you can get rid of that weakness if you want. The other thing, which is a big complaint to me, I actually can't stand this downside. It's not really one people really think of, but you can't just actually hunt blood. Like, you cannot just go up to a sim and force yourself on them to take their blood, which I wish you could do. I wish you could just run up to a sim, bite them in the neck, drink their blood. I don't think they should have incorporated that you can just kill people, but they should have allowed you to go and just drink people's blood without their consent because you're a fucking vampire who's hungry. That would have been awesome. But instead, you have to sit there and have a conversation with them and get them to consensually agree to you fucking biting their wrist and drinking their blood. But I just feel like, if vampires were real, they wouldn't do that. Like, unless you had a lot of respect for people, like, if you got hungry, man, you'd fucking drink up. Or at least go for an animal or something, man. Like, it's like it kind of takes away that horror aspect of it. You watch a vampire movie, people are running away hiding from the vampire because he's trying to drink their blood and kill them. It kind of ruins that for me. Like, I just wish you could do it, but you can't. So that's just one complaint I have about the vampire. But I mean, overall, I think it's really fun. I think it's really cool. They put like work into it. Like, you get a lighter, like glowy, paler skin tone when you become a vampire. You get fangs. Like, the whole thing is just really cool. And I think they did a really good job making this life state. There isn't really anything too glitchy that I can really recall with the vampire, as some life states have the kind of their glitchiness and buggy problems. I think they did a good job with it. Of course, if you stay out in the sun too long, like, you are fucked once you get to a certain level of sunburn because that moodlet won't go away for like 2 days or something like that, and you'll pretty much have your thirst need depleting at such a fast rate you won't be able to keep up with it, and you will die. But I actually like that because you can't just cheat death like you usually can in The Sims 3 all the time. It's like, if you let the sun get your vampire, you will probably face death. I think that's a really cool thing that they made it that way because you get punished. Whereas, like, normally it's like, ah, shit, like, my Sim's drowned on the pool, I can clearly get him out, but not this time. I don't think there's really too much more to say about vampire Sims. I think they're really fun. I think they're really cool, and I'm gonna put it in the S tier. Now, that might be a little controversial. I was thinking A, but honestly, I think it's worthy of S. It is just so fun to play as, and that would be the most fun life state to play as, or at least one of the most fun to play as for sure. I think it's deserving of S. Then I'm really thinking about it. Like, it has its downsides, but they're just super fun to play as, and you can just never really get bored of that vampire shit. Like, other life states, you can kind of just tune off that they're this life state and just go on about your day. But it's like, you always have to play by the ear of the vampire because the sun's going to get you and you have to drink that blood. Whereas other life states, you can just kind of ignore those other things. So I'm putting it in the S tier. I think a vampire is a strong sim. I think it was a well designed sim, and I think it's deserving of that spot. So next up, we have Imaginary Friends, which came to Sims 3 Generations, and there really isn't too much to say about Imaginary Friends. Like, they're pretty cool. Basically, if you have an imaginary friend doll, what you get by having a baby or starting a game with a toddler, I believe you can do it that way. There's a 75% chance you get a doll in the mail. You have your sim interact with the doll and play with it when they're a toddler, and once they're a child, they will become an imaginary friend. They will see them, interact with them, and get to play with them. And they did a good job with it too, because if you play as one of your other sims who isn't the one that has the imaginary friend, they won't see them on the screen. You'll only see the imaginary friend on your screen when you're playing as the sim who's imagining him or her. And I think it's pretty cool. So not much to say about it though, because this is about what it's like when they're playable, when you're playing as them. So you can make them real by either getting level 10 logic and using the science lab thing to make the imaginary friend potion, at which point you can make them real. I think this is the better way to do it because there is an opportunity chain to do it, but I feel like it's just longer and less effective when you can literally just keep making more and more of those potions, as many as you want. Once you know how to make them, once you have the skill level to make them, you can just make a bunch of them and save them for whenever you want them, and do it again and again if you want to keep making imaginary friends real. Um, so it's pretty cool. You make your imaginary friend real, and it will randomize what they look like as a real sim. And they'll have an imaginary friend outfits. They'll have like the doll like outfit and stuff, and they'll normally have really cool colored hair slash eyes, and they have cool clothes. But that's really about it. There's nothing that they can do that a regular sim can't. They have a regular lifespan, and they're cool. Like they're cool. They look cool, but you can customize your Sims those ways if you wanted to anyway. But there really just isn't much to say about it. You can turn it to a toy, your toy form, and look like uh, how you did when you were imaginary, if you'd like. And the first time that you experience things like eating or sleeping or whatever, they get positive moodlets, which is cool. But because they're real for the first time. But there's no like shock value to anyone around them, that it's not like, holy shit, he is real or anything. Like there's no interactions like that really add to it. You just make them real. It's cool, but that's really about it. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna go right ahead and I'm gonna put them in the B tier. I think it's a solid B tier. Imaginary friends are pretty cool, but they don't really allow you to do anything that cool. There's not really much to explore with the life state. You get cool looking Sims and you get pretty cool gene pool because you have these cool hair colors and shit now. But there's just really nothing else to it. They're slightly cool, which puts them at a B tier instead of a C, because we're basing it off just regular human stuff. But there really isn't much more to them than a human sim, but they're just slightly cooler if we're comparing life state. So yeah, I think very comfortably just right in the B tier. So, since The Sims 3 Pets doesn't bring any human like life states to the table, they are not fair to compare to these life states. Let's move on to The Sims 3 Showtime. Sims 3 Showtime brings you Genies. Now, Genies are pretty cool. If you get a dusty old lamp, it can be pretty hard to get, but you can simply buy one for 30,000 lifetime rewards points, at which point you just wipe it and you get 3 wishes from the genie. You can choose to free them. Now, thing is, if you have supernatural, you can just start as a genie and don't have to go through the headache of freeing one and having it join your household if you wish to do it that way. But let's talk about how it is playably. They can grant you some wishes and stuff, but this is about how they operate when you play as them, in which case you cannot grant wishes. So, how are they in the game? Well, the genie has by far the most superior, in my opinion, abilities I think the Sims 3 has offered a life state, at least in this regard, in terms of usefulness. They can clean the entire lot with the click of a button, make house spotless and sparkly. They can clean themselves or other Sims with the click of a button, make Sim, magically clean Sim. And you can just basically instantly take showers or clean everything in your house without actually having to do it. They save you a lot of time when it comes to these things. But more impressive than that, they can summon any food imaginable in the game with the click of a button as well, which means if you don't feel like cooking something, you don't want to eat a shitty quick meal from the fridge, have your genie do it. But it gets even better. Because on top of these abilities, they can also banish unwanted Sims right from your lot. But even better than that, they get the ensorcel ability. Ensorceling Sims is like the coolest, I think, most omnipotent power anything has in the entire game. You literally make that sim, whoever you want, by ensorceling them, playable for 4 hours. It's like they join your household. You can rob their inventory and sell their stuff for money. You can make them do anything you want. You can even make them quit a job if you want. Like you can make them do whatever you want during those 4 hours, like they are your sim. And if you're really trying to advance a relationship between two sims, and or you need to like complete an opportunity with them, or whatever the situation is, it really makes that useful, so they can't run away from you or like make an excuse to go home or whatever. Like you need to interact with that sim for whatever objective you're trying to complete. The ensorcel ability will allow you to do so, at which point you can free him at any point you want, or after 4 hours it'll expire and you'll go about your business. The genie has some very cool powers. I think that are almost too powerful in a way. And there really isn't any downsides to them. Their life state is, I think it's about like 4 times higher. It's a little higher than normal. It's not like crazy higher, but it's higher. Um, their needs seem to die slower than normal as well, so you don't have to do as much maintenance in terms of hunger or energy. I don't really think they move much faster, but they do get a cool animation when they hover and fly when they instead of running, so it is pretty cool to watch. But I don't think it's really that much faster in that regard. But overall, there really is no downsides to being a genie. I mean, you can nitpick everything. You're even immune to vampires drinking from you because apparently they don't have blood for whatever reason. But yeah, they are also immune to fires, which is really cool and useful in some situations. There's really nothing bad. They don't really have any weakness that I can think of. The genie is pretty omnipotent, and I think it's really useful to have one in your household. And for that reason, just to crack open the can, they're going right in the S tier. I mean, there is not one complaint I can give a genie. They're very useful, and they're just a great addition to the game. They're very fun to play with, and they're very powerful. And yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say about it. I don't really have anything negative I can say about them, except for the fact that, of course, they come with the weakest expansion pack, in my opinion, which is Showtime. But Genies kind of make up for a lot of the bad stuff that Showtime was. But yeah, I mean, absolute S tier for Genie, no doubt about it. So, moving into the Sims 3 Supernatural, let's start off with werewolves. Werewolves are exactly what you'd expect them to be, human like Sims, or just humans really at face value, become wolf like creatures when the moon becomes full. And among this, you can also transform into your wolf form at will and go back to human form at will, except when it's a full moon or when your sim becomes low in mood. And when this happens, it will force you to be into your werewolf form. Now, this does add a realistic aspect to it in terms of what's realistic as far as a werewolf goes, as far as werewolves have been explained in lore and fiction anyway. That, yeah, when the moon's full, you turn into that. When they're angry, they're going to turn into that. But this does cause a lot of frustration for the gameplay, at least for me. I haven't played too much as the werewolf, but I find this really annoying. The mood gets low, and it's like, oh shit, like now I gotta sit here and be a werewolf and everything. And the problem is like you can't like do some things as efficiently as you can in human form when you're a werewolf. You get some improvements, but for example, you can't like if you want to try for a baby, you can't do that in werewolf form. So like, oh shit, sorry, can't procreate today because the moon's full or whatever. And then like the other thing is like sometimes it's laggy. Like it'll take really long for the transformation to happen. It'll make your sim like late for work, whatever. If they wake up in a bad mood and they have to go to work, and then it's like, oh well, shit. Guess I'm gonna be late because I gotta wait for the transformation. And then another thing, like sometimes it just transforms to a random variation, not even the one that you had by default or the one that you made and create a sim. Like just there's like a glitch with that, and you can kind of fix it just by going back and changing it. But like through like using shift click while you're using testing cheats enabled true and going back to CAS. So it seemed to fix it the one time if I remember right, but it's just kind of frustrating. Um, I mean, yeah, they're pretty cool. You can run around and you can spread the werewolf curse And unlike the vampire, you can force it on people and they can try to fend you off. But like if you get like a lifetime reward, you can force the curse bite on people and there's no way they can get away from it. But I don't really see what's so advantages to you by turning other people into werewolves. I guess if you want to like have some kind of story where you spread, the curse around the whole town, everyone's a werewolf now. Like, I guess it's kind of cool, but I don't see too much of the appeal when it comes down to it, in that regard. But it is cool. You are stronger. You get a slightly longer life as well, and there is some fun to be had with it. Running around as a werewolf, exploring what it's like to be a werewolf. Embracing the werewolf thing. It's fun, but I just there's just really not a whole lot to it. There's a lot of frustrations that come with it. The one thing I will also point out here, just because I really love the Easter egg that they added, was that if you get hungry like the wolf as a moodlet, and that's because of that song by Duran Duran. So I think that's really cool because I like that song. So I was happy to see that they snuck that Easter egg in there. But I mean, yeah, that's just really not a whole lot to it. You get a secret hidden skill lycanthropy or something like that, lycanthropy. I don't know how to pronounce it, but there isn't really a whole lot that comes with that either. You basically just have an easier time hunting and gathering stuff. So I mean, yeah, not really a whole lot to talk about with the werewolf, honestly. It's what you would expect, and it's fun to play with from time to time, but it has its frustrations where you're just like, man, I just want to stay in my human form today and just go about my business, but fuck, the moon's full, so I have to deal with it. Like, it has its frustrations. It has its times where it's really fun to play as, but there's also just not too much to talk about when it comes to it at the end of the day. And I guess the last point to add about it is there's some cringy interactions that make me really uncomfortable, like rubbing the belly or playing fetch is kind of funny, but it's like, dude, like you're actually rubbing a person's belly. Like they look like a dog right now, but they're clearly a werewolf and they're a human. Like you're rubbing that. It's just kind of weird. I guess it's funny too, but I guess that's the only other thing really to point out here. Not too much to talk about. Uh, I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna go C tier. That might be a little controversial, and I was really thinking B tier because it has its cool and fun to be had. But when it boils down to it, like there are times where I just like when I've played as werewolves in the past, where I'm just like, damn, I wish I could just be human right now, or damn, this is pissing me off. Like if it worked the way it should, and it wasn't like glitching and laggy when it transformed and stuff, like and it didn't have some of these problems that I've experienced, I would definitely consider putting it in the B. And it's a high C. We're using human as the baseline. Like it's really fun. It's cool. It's just not too crazy about it. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to keep it in the C tier. So next up, we got witches. Witches can cast spells, curses, and blessings, where I guess they call them charms. And there can be a lot of usage to these types of things, which they can learn through a hidden spellcasting skill, which is built by playing with magic or getting into spell duels of other witches. However, there's just really not too much to talk about when it comes to this, unfortunately. What makes being a witch so overwhelming is that it's very difficult to build that spellcasting skill. So by the time you unlock anything, your sim is going to just be dead. And the reason being is they don't get a longer life. Nope, they live just as long as normal Sims, and you're gonna have to find time between everything else that you want your Sim to do in their life to build spell casting. So it just becomes so underwhelming because you just never really. It's difficult to get to these high levels of really cool spells. For example, just starting off like I think level 1 or level 2, you get like a good luck charm. Okay, to get a good luck moodlet. Like who fucking cares? And then you get like a fire and an ice one at level 3, which is pretty cool. And then eventually you can like work your way up to upgrading objects and stuff. And eventually you can even like spawn zombies, or you get like a sunlight charm, which like cures people of being zombies and stuff. Like there's some really cool stuff to do with it, but they're just not easy to unlock. Honestly, like it was a struggle just sitting there constantly bippity boppity boopity. I guess that's more fairies, which we'll get to next. But you get my point. You're sitting there playing with magic, and you're just slowly gaining the skill before you really get to have any fun with it. Which I'm glad that they built a system in to that you have to work towards unlocking these things. It could be really shitty if you just right off the bat, here you go, here's a haunting curse, boom. But I just feel like they should have put something in the game that made it a little more interactive to build the skill, because the play of magic, it's not like you can't be like other things where it's like, oh, work out until skill increases for athletic skill. There's no like play with magic until skill increases. You have to just put that interaction in their queue like a million times, if you want to do it that way. So I just feel like they should have put something that you could practice with towards the goal of gaining skill in it. And I don't think it should have been a hidden skill. Like, I kind of get why it's a hidden skill, because it's only for witches or whatever, but I feel like you should be able to know what level you're at. Like, a skill journal for spellcasting would have been very useful as well. So it's just kind of like sadly just underwhelming. It's like when you have a witch sim, on my main file, that's how I started off. It was with a witch, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, I totally forgot. My sim's a witch, because it's just like you almost don't even really pay attention to it half the time, because it's like hard to just actually play with, because it's very slow progressing, and you have other things you want to do in the game. So it's just unfortunately really underwhelming. But it has fun to it, and it's cool, and there's nothing bad, like negative, about being a witch. They just are pretty much normal sims that have sorcery abilities. That's about it. So I think it's a B tier. I think it comfortably sits in the B tier. There's nothing frustrating about being a witch. There's no downside to being the witch, directly in of itself. It can be slow and painful to gain spellcasting skill, but I mean nothing bad about it, and it has some cool stuff. So I think B tier suits the witch quite well. So to finish off the supernatural line of Sims, we have fairies, and fairies are pretty cool. Like witches, they have magical abilities, but unlike witches, they can learn that magic pretty fast, and they have a long time to do it with a 5 times multiplier on their young adult and adult life stages. There isn't too much crazy stuff they can do with their magical abilities, but it does have its fun and it has its moments. This hidden skill, I believe, goes up to level 10, although you pretty much don't get too much more to do after like level 4. But these abilities can be pretty useful. You have a fairy repair ability, which allows you to repair objects, it seems, more efficiently without risk of electrocution. And of course, you have the bloom ability, which is very good if you're trying to advance your gardening skill, because it allows your plants to grow like that, literally instantly, along with the ability to revive plants. Other than this, you pretty much just get some pranks, which can be pretty funny. Haha, you're now in your underwear, or haha, your toilet's overflowing. But they don't really have too much usage, as far as, productivity goes. They're just fun little gags to play around with, and I think fairies are pretty fun to play with overall. They also get some auras, which are pretty useful, and what's good about these is they will last until they either decide to take them off or their magic meter dies down, but this will build their fairy magic skill over time without having to actively do anything, so you passively gain this skill hiddenly while you have them. You get an aura of soothing, which just relaxes Sims around them with a positive moodlet, an aura of creativity, which boosts creative skills, and an aura of the body and mind, which, assuming by its name, boosts your logic and athletic skills at a faster rate. And this affects not just them, but the Sims around them. What's good about this is, as opposed to witches, is that you can gain this magical ability pretty fast instead of having to constantly play with magic. You gain things pretty fast. Along with this, you can turn into a smaller form and play around and have some fun with that. Go in the fairy house, take care of business with another fairy, if you know what I mean. And yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, there isn't like too much crazy stuff you can do with fairy magic, among besides some funny pranks that you can play on people, and you do get some usage out of it. Like I said, the bloom and repair abilities being really the only truly useful abilities the fairies get. But it is a lot of fun, and it's cool. And unlike the witches, it's not like underwhelming. It's like you always are aware that they're a fairy because they have their wings and everything. And although a couple of the wing options are really goofy and stupid looking, it's cool to look at in a lot of regards. And you're always aware of it. You embrace the life state. It's like a lot of the time when you're playing as like a witch or an imaginary friend, for an example, it's like you just kind of forget that they're even in a cult. You're just like, oh yeah, shit, that's right, I have witch powers. But the fairy, it's like you're embracing it a lot more. And so I think it's a very strong life state. It's not anything like supreme, though, if I gotta really lay it down. I think it belongs in the A tier. I'm gonna put it in the A tier because I think they did a better job embracing and emboldening this life state than they did, like for an example, the witch. I think you have a lot more fun playing as the fairy, although the magic isn't nearly as useful as a lot of some of the witch magic spellcasting options are. It's still easier to gain and use and constantly have fun with, and allows you to kind of explore the fairy life. And they also get a longer life, which is pretty cool because you can get a lot more done in that lifespan of the fairy. I think they did a good job with it. It's not supreme though, so I think it just stays in the A tier. Moving into the Sims 3 seasons, we now have aliens, and they're coming around. They're flying saucers or they're UFOs or whatever the hell you want to call them. They're abducting your Sims, baby, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. Well, let's talk about how they are to play as. Well, that's too bad because you want to play as them, you can't make them in CAS. You want to know why? Because EA made a coding error. And they just didn't ever really feel like fixing it, or maybe it was just too difficult to fix. But nonetheless, not gonna happen. You want to import one from the exchange? Well, guess what? If you import one from the exchange, you have to get them in from the library and create a household, which brings you to CAS, which does what? Oh yeah, make some human. So they'll just look like an alien, won't be an actual alien. So that means you have to get abducted or visited by an alien and then start a relationship with that alien, moving them into your household, or you better have a kid with that alien. Otherwise, not gonna happen. But we can't really complain too much about that because we are ranking these life states for what they are, not about how difficult they are to get, right? So let's talk about the alien. Aliens are pretty unique in one aspect as opposed to other life states, and that's that when they reproduce, it's not just a 50% chance it's alien or not, it's a 50% DNA. So they actually just have the DNA percentage, which will die off as they have more kids throughout newer generations, or will go up if they get with more aliens. So I think this is pretty unique, as opposed to, hey, if you're having a kid with a vampire, there's a 50% chance the kid's also going to be a vampire. So I think they did that pretty well. It's interesting and it's unique. Now, let's talk about some of the alien abilities. They can read minds, they can drain your needs or boost your needs, which don't really boost or drain too much. Like they don't have a dramatic effect. It might help or help you out or help them out a little bit, but they don't do too much. But don't worry, because they also have a mind control feature, which is totally awesome. You can use the mind control feature on another sim, and you want to know what it does? Nothing. It does absolutely fucking nothing. If someone knows what the hell it's supposed to do, please let me know. Because it does nothing. It's not like the ensorcel ability with the genie where you can actually literally control them. You can't make that sim do what you want when you have them under the mind control. You can't like force them to clean or anything. You can't like make them accept every social interaction you do. They'll still reject you in some ways. It does absolutely nothing. As far as I have been able to test out, it's absolutely useless. But let's get to some of the other fun stuff. You can get a Galaxis space scar, which you really have to steal from another alien or if you moved one in because you cannot buy them in game. But you can have absolutely a lot of fun with this bird, going around terrorizing the entire town, or you can space travel to a rabbit hole. There's a lot of fun to be had with that. And on top of this, they are pretty cool to interact with overall. They have a pretty cool voice. They look cool, and they have some funny interactions like a probe, and they pretend to probe you, and it's like, haha, I'm not actually probing you because I'm not a dick. The aliens tend to be pretty friendly, and you can really embrace an alien lifestyle with them. They get a brain power motive instead of energy, which decays very slowly. So you don't ever have to sleep, and you almost rarely ever have to restore that brain power. But there's one thing about the alien which really makes it fucking awesome. And you know what that is? The Summon Meteor ability, baby. If you have seasons and ambitions installed, then you better buckle up for the best thing this game has to offer, I think, hands down. Okay, maybe not the best thing ever, hands down, but it's awesome. If you have full brain power, you can actually just summon a meteor to whatever location you want, which will drain your brain power completely. But don't worry, because you can just consume that meteor and get back to work. And this will literally kill Sims and wipe them out. What you can do is beyond the old, oh, build a wall around the pool technique. No, you can literally directly just shoot meteors at people now. And it is absolutely awesome to watch the carnage. So for that reason alone, aliens are going in the S tier, baby, because there's nothing bad about them. They're very efficient. They don't really ever have. They don't have to sleep at all. Their brain power lasts really long. They get a lot done throughout the day. You can build skills really fast, and despite having a regular lifespan, you can really advance far with the alien. But that meteor ability, absolutely going in the S tier just for that reason alone. So, moving into the Sims 3 University life, we get plant Sims, which are pretty much exactly what they would sound like. Humans who are also part plant. They get leaf-like clothing and leaf hair, but these can of course be replaced by normal clothing and normal hair if you so wish, and they typically have a green skin complexion. They're pretty cool, and they have some fun things you can do with them. They no longer have a hunger need and a bladder need like normal Sims, and their hygiene need has been replaced by a water need. However, the water need is basically exactly like the hygiene need in every way because you'll just get a negative dehydrated moodlet when you run out of water and nothing bad as a result happens. And on top of that, I guess you no longer offend Sims with your bad smell, but it makes sense because plants don't have sweat glands and they don't really smell. Or at least some plants can smell. But for the most part, it makes total sense. But there's really nothing like too much to it because there's nothing bad that happens by being dehydrated and you replenish it the same way by showering or bathing. For whatever reason, at least in my experience, swimming in the ocean or pool or anywhere does not bring this water need back, but you can absorb puddles to get it and you can sit in the rain to get it. On top of this, they have a really cool ability which is photosynthesize. They go into the ground and they root themselves, and you can see like a little plant come out in the ground, and it will gain their energy and water needs. Of course, only if it's during the day. And it's a pretty cool thing they can do by acting like a plant. You get a flower kiss ability and a poison kiss ability. The poison kiss will make the sim that you do it to sick and vomit sometimes, but they can also turn into a plant sim as a result of it, but it doesn't really do too much. It can talk to plants, which is pretty cool, and they tend to be better gardeners. They also get a cool animation where there's flowers coming behind them as they walk. When all is said and done, the plant sim can be a little more efficient than a human considering they don't have hunger or bladder to tend to, but when it's all really boiled down, there isn't too much they can do and not too much comes with them. They're cool to play around with and they're entertaining, and I think it's a really interesting concept, but they don't really do too much. There isn't like more stuff they can do by being a plant sim that can really affect or change anything in the game. And among this, reproduction is a chore because they can't actually become pregnant. They have to, of course, plant seeds for more plant sims. It is a joy planting this forbidden plant seed and forbidden fruit seed and getting this plant sim. It's a really fun thing, pulling it out of the ground. I think it's a really cool concept, but there really just isn't too much to the life state in terms of playability. They have a normal lifespan, and they can pretty much operate almost just as efficiently as a human can, but slightly more because they don't have to eat or use the bathroom. But they are entertaining. There really isn't too much to talk about with them, and I think they just comfortably, right off the bat, just go right in the B tier. They're fun, they have their moments, but there really isn't too much to them, and it doesn't like stay that fun for long. You end up just treating them like a normal sim, and you can't really embrace that life state too much. But it is cool. So I think a B tier really suits the plant sim comfortably. So it's time to move into the Sims 3 Island Paradise, where we get mermaids. Mermaids are creatures of the sea. I guess they're kind of like half fish, half people in a way. And this adds a lot of new fun content when it comes to Island Paradise. But this is also kind of a bit of a downside because if you don't want to live in Isla Paradiso, you're not really going to enjoy being a mermaid that much because that's really the whole thing. You can't scuba dive in any other neighborhoods, which is their big advantage. They can go underwater for an unlimited period of time, and they also automatically have level 10 scuba diving skill, making them great at this. But if you're in any other neighborhood, you're not going to be able to do that. You can swim a little faster and have your enjoyment in the ocean still, but not to the extent you can in Isla Paradiso. Mermaids, they don't really get too much abilities outside of the swimming feature. They swim really fast. They can go underwater as long as they want. They'll always win a hold breath contact test, for an example. But there really isn't too much to do with them outside of that. They are mermaids, and you have their fun with them in the water. Along with this, they get their hygiene need replaced by hydration, but it's not like the plant sim hydration need where it really doesn't matter. If your mermaid dehydrates enough, it will actually die. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. But I guess it makes it kind of realistic. But more disappointingly than that, if you don't go into the ocean enough, your sim will adapt to land and will just become a normal sim again instead of being a mermaid. So you actually have to maintain the mermaid with salt water in order to keep it as a mermaid, which is just a huge downside and a disappointment overall, I think. When it comes down to it, though, you can just purchase a lifetime reward, which will stop that from happening, and you're pretty much not really going to get much enjoyment with the mermaid outside of the ocean anyway, so it really shouldn't be that big of an issue unless you're really trying to focus on more normal sim stuff outside of that. The only other cool thing that they can do is if they have a mean spirit or evil trait, apparently, if so I've read, you can summon shark attacks on people, which is awesome. But I've never really experienced that. And the mermaid is the life state that I've played the least with. And I haven't really seen too many crazy things about it. It's exactly what I'd expect. I think it's a great addition to the game. But there is some other big complaints I have to make. They're insanely glitchy from what I have seen, at least when it comes to other mermaids. In Isla Paradiso, they will tend to just glitch out and not grow tails when they're underwater. So you just see these weird legs flopping around, and they won't have their scales when they're out of water. Sometimes the summon mermaid thing doesn't work. It seems to be really glitched half the time, and it's frustrating. And I think that's playing a role in one big thing I've been trying to do for a long time now, which is unlock Mermaid's Secret Island. You need to have a good relationship at least 70% with a mermaid and talk to them underwater, then they'll show you the island. Still haven't had any luck with that. I think a lot of it is because these mermaids are tending to be like glitched out and the game's not realizing that they're a mermaid even though they clearly are. So there's some frustrations with it too. I don't think there's anything that great about it. Like I think it's fun, I think it's creative, and I think it's a new addition to the game, but it's just a little underwhelming in a lot of aspects, I think. I mean, you have your fun with it, but you have normal lifespans, and yeah, there isn't really too much of an advantage to being a mermaid. Along with this, you really can't gain hunger unless you eat seafood, making it a bit of a chore. But it is cool, it is interesting, but I'm teetering a little bit here. Uh, I'll put them at the B tier. I was thinking C, and it definitely is lower on the B tier, but I think it deserves the B tier just because, you definitely get that advantage to the island fun by having a mermaid, and it enhances that. If it wasn't for some of these other downsides, I think it would be an easy B tier. But it's teetering towards C, but we'll put it at B. I think B is the appropriate place to put the mermaid. There was effort and insight put into the mermaid. I think it deserves a B slot. So lastly, we have what comes with Sims 3 into the future, and that's Plumbots. Plumbots are futuristic robots that supersede the Simbot. You can now customize these robots in any way you want, color them any way you want, and structure them any way you want. So it's pretty cool. You have full customization over what these robots look like, and you can have some fun with them. But here's kind of the thing about them, is that you pretty much have a useless robot just kind of slopping around unless you build trait chips. And to get good trait chips, you have to build some high bot building skills. So you have to put some effort into it. You can't just go and click a button and make the robot and then say, haha, I have a robot. You have to, work at getting some of these trait chips. The hardest one to get is the sentience trait chip, which pretty much makes them human-like, that they can interact pretty much like other Sims. Now, here's kind of my complaint when it comes to this. The Simbot, which is supposedly supposed to be less advanced than the Plumbot, supposed to be more primitive than the Plumbot. It's not in the future. They are way harder to make. They take an absolutely insane amount of time to make. It's probably the hardest thing to make in the entire game, in my opinion. The hardest thing to achieve in the game, in my opinion. But the plumb bot, all you do is you need $250 and you got a plumb bot. Now, it's not going to have the trait chips you want. It's not going to have the capabilities that you want, but you have it right off the bat. Don't need to do anything. That's it. Go up to the bot building machine and throw a token in there. There you go. But here's where it kind of doesn't even make sense either. The Simbot is totally sentient. It acts just like humans do. It has traits just like humans do, and it has its different abilities and things that come with it because it's a robot, but it's sentient. How is it that this takes place in the future and you have to go out of your way to put these trait chips in? Like, they just don't have that at face value. You'd think that it makes sense. You could argue it makes sense that they're easier to just make right off the bat, even though you would have to think and say, it must be harder to build something that advanced as it is to build something more primitive. But it kind of makes sense because maybe the technology is advanced enough that you can just do that. But how is it that you can't just have it already be like a human? How is it that you have to give it trait chips to interact like humans do? It doesn't really make any sense because the Symbot is supposedly more primitive, and it's just like that at face value. But I'm not gonna slap it too hard because this also adds a lot of new fun gameplay. Building the trait chips, finding the nanites for the trait chips, and customizing your plumb bot. It's a whole fun experience. So I did enjoy doing that stuff. So I'm not complaining on it too hard. It just really doesn't make sense. Now we have to really talk about the most important part here, which is the plumb bot's playability. How is it as a life state to play as? And that's really what we're ranking here to get all that other bullshit out of the way. There's really not much to it to break it down to you. It's good because they don't have hunger needs or bladder needs or hygiene needs. They only have up to 4 needs and only 2 if you don't get the trait chips installed. You'll have a battery and maintenance needs, which maintenance decays pretty slow once you get up to a higher quality plumb bot, and battery is just the same kind of deal too. But you need to recharge and you need to maintain your plumb bot to keep it going and working. What's good about the Plumbot as well is they're pretty much immortal to anything you throw at it other than meteors, from what I know. They don't ever die from old age either. They just kind of live fucking forever. So I hope you like having your Plumbot because he or she or it or whatever you want to refer to it as is not going anywhere. Ever. So yeah, they can have sex, but they can't reproduce obviously because they're robots. And that's pretty much it. I mean, they're more efficient at a lot of things too. If you give them the efficient trait chip along with limitless learning, they can master pretty much every skill really, really fast, which makes them useful in a lot of aspects. But when it comes to really down to the core gameplay of the Plumbot, there just isn't too much to do with them. They can't like go around, blasting people with, shots out of their arms or anything. They can't go and do all this cool stuff. And of course, you can just build them in present time too. So unfortunately, even though you really do need to go to the future to, up your bot building and get the nanites you need, you can just make them right away. There isn't really it doesn't really make too much sense. You can just make them in present time, and there just isn't a lot to them. Unfortunately, they're really fun. Like, they're cool. I like being able to customize them and stuff. But when you actually have the Plumbot as your playable sim, it's a little lackluster. It's like, okay, I had fun making this Plumbot, and now I'm kind of stuck with it. I have nothing to do with it. It's like you can kind of use them to do things around the house, and you're good at making money because they will always perform well at every job they do because they'll just have robotic efficiency if you have the efficient trait in there, um, efficiency trait chip in there. But they just when it comes down to it, they can do less than what humans can do, and you need trait chips to make them do those things. And it gets a little wonky, and they don't do too much, really. It's just kind of like playing as a human sim, but with some advancements. And they have a lot of great uses, but when it comes down to it, unfortunately, they're just not as fun as it is to play as a Simbot. Sure, they're customizable and they look cooler than a Simbot does, but the Simbot can go around smashing shit to bits. The Simbot offends people. It can cause havoc. Like, you can have some really fun shit with the Simbot. The Plumbot is just, yeah, what's up, man? Shake my hand. Here I am. I'm a Plumbot. This is what I do. You know, I do like them though. I'm not shitting on them. I just think there's a lot of things that I have to point out about them. When it really all boils down to it, I like the Plumbot. I'm very happy they made it customizable and all that. And even though I'm shitting on it a little bit when it comes to these trait ships and customizations, I think it added a lot of fun new gameplay. So I don't want to shit on that too hard. I think when it boils down to it, it goes in the B tier. I just don't think it's worthy of going to the A tier as how fun the Simbot is to play as. You really get to embrace that robotic state. Whereas the Plumbot, it's like you're just trying to become as human as you can. So it's like, they're cool. But yeah, I think B tier is the way to finish this off. So that sums up the tier list for the Sims 3 life states. If you have any disagreements, let me know in the comments to the two people watching. And as always, I love you. Probably. I don't know. Whatever.